I'm Andra Annette again, and this
Uh,
is Lorilet Monegro. And I was just saying, my
Hi.
face is super itchy. So we are Soul's Code,
It's
and tonight,
allergy season.
no, I think it's just my skin is dry because thyroid makes your skin dry. So, we're going to talk about reconnecting to self. So we kind of always talk about the disconnect in the world. So we want to give you some insights into reconnection to self and what that actually looks like, right? So I'm always talking about all the books I read. I read a lot of books. Um, and I was reading one recently that I really liked, and it talks about a disconnect between us and our spiritual selves, and how that disconnect really has us living in an illusion about what life is supposed to be about and what it actually is about, right? So the only way to really go home into that spirit is to reconnect with self and disconnect from the illusion, so to speak, right? Um, so all that need to be seen, that need to, for visibility outside of ourselves, that need, that drive for work, for money, for more, for all that stuff is really part of that illusion, right? Because we're born perfect. We are born possessing everything we need to be happy, healthy, healed, and whole, right? So reconnecting back to that self and that center that we're always talking about is really just about reconnecting with who you are as a person, what makes you happy, what brings you joy, what makes you feel whole, and what's important to you in your life as a person, taking that time to calm your nervous system, um, take those pauses when you need them, and really go after what you want, like you're going for broke, because you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, on becoming more connected, I think that, you know, to become more connected, we have to really get clear on our intentionality, our intention. And I find that, at least for me, right? Every time I share anything, it's because it's stuff that I've kind of gone through in my reflections, right? I think that intentionality, getting clear and having the intention that you want to live, come to life, um, matters. And it's the way that you can come back to yourself. But that requires clarity, right? To even set an intention, you have to know what you're seeking an intention for, purpose. And I often find that when I'm not grounded in an idea because I don't understand what I want, then I feel stuck and I do weird stuff. I will just do haphazard kind of like, oh, just almost autopilot kind of behavior. And that's being disconnected,
Yeah,
Sometimes we don't think it, but the older I get, the more I realize that all of those things that we do on autopilot, right, are a form of disconnection because it's almost like your body is carrying itself without your mind, body, and feelings being integrated. So I think this connection happens on a daily basis for all of us. And yet,
yeah.
and the intention to come back to the self, to come back to what matters, to put what's really valuable front and center requires real deliberate effort and intention. If any of what I've said hopefully makes sense to the people who are listening, because we will have 500 running v- to-do lists, whether that be, oh, I have to go do the groceries, I have to go pick up the kids, I have to go, cook, I have to, and it's like we don't see it, but all of that stuff is autopilot, disconnected stuff based on routines. It's not really being present with where am I right now? What really is essential? Um, and when we start doing that, I think it's easier to find the
See,
path to a connection, you know.
absolutely. But even those things that happen during the day, like you said, you just kind of do things willy-nilly when you're not centered. And for me, it's
Mhm.
more procrastination. When I find I'm procrastinating,
Mm.
it's not, I'm not in my center, you know. Um, because when you're procrastinating, it's usually based on fear or uh, even if it's not fear, you're just not sure about something, or if that's the way you want to go, if that's the path you want to take. So you might procrastinate. So for me, it's never usually based on fear. It's usually because I'm not sure that's the right move at that moment. So my
Right.
mind gets distracted. And then, and for a lot of people, that might be bad. For me, that's a good place to be because it's almost like I'm taking a break from that thought. And then when I come back to it, when I say, okay, it's time to approach this again, I kind of made that decision,
Hmm.
you know? So, but I get distracted with other things. And usually it's other people's stuff, helping, or just doing stuff, things that I want to help with, things that I want to do, right? But
Hmm.
that does kind of take me out of center and it does stop me from hitting pause sometimes when I need to.
Hmm.
So for me, you know, I canceled all my calls the other night. I had calls and said, I just can't do them. Just can't.
Right.
Because
You
I
know,
knew that I needed to step back and have that time for me. Bad day, it was raining, there was bad Wi-Fi anyway. So I said, isn't this a good reason to stay home and relax, right? And not have all that craziness, right? But I think that us as a whole, human beings as a whole, feel obligated to keep going even when we need that break and that reset. And that reset really does require bringing it back in and saying, okay, where am I at now? What's going on? Or even in that minute, what am I feeling right now? What is this
hmm,
about? Am I happy? Am I having a good day? Am I having a bad day? So sometimes we do need to break it down into those small little things. So,
yes.
you know, um, I make an intention every day that it's going to be a good day. Does that always pan out? No, but when I'm find myself that that day is not progressing and getting progressively better, I bring it back in and say, what's going on that's disrupting my day? What can I do to bring that positivity back into my day? Because you could be the most positive person. You're positive like me. We're both very spiritual people, and people can still piss you off, you know?
Oh, absolutely. One thing has nothing to do with the other in the
Yeah.
sense
And
that, we're human beings. We're not machines.
and yeah, and people could definitely put a crinkle in your day, you know. Um, so you do have to like step back and refresh because those feelings, that cause that crinkle or whatever, if you carry that through the rest of your day, then you are now creating the rest of that day, right? But if you bring it back in and say, okay, why did this upset me? Is it them? Is it me? you know why did I take it personal, or are they just out of place? You know what I mean? And let it go. I forgive them, let it go, right? Otherwise you're going to take that through the rest of your day, right?
Yes, I think that, when I hear you say these things, it just kind of reminded me of like the importance of establishing uh, a practice of just clearing, kind of like the same way we go to sleep and wake up, just clearing all of the different people's energies and emotions and beliefs and whatever they may have that you might have encountered like in an exchange, and say to yourself, the same way I go to sleep and I wake up and I have a new day is the same way you can have in all of your relationships. If we look at children, right, one of the things that children are magnificent as they are interacting with others is that they may have a fight with a child and seriously, they just forget. It's like it never happened. Unlike adults who grow up and you would think that they would be better and emulate children more. Um, we can spend our entire life in a very wretched place. And to be honest with you, when you consider this, how that can become a source of not only discontent, but also a source of brokenness and a source that blocks everything about your life being good and well and happiness because you're now packing in all of this stuff. And, whether you give out love or whether you give out hate, the first person that owns all of that is the giver. So my suggestion is if you're going to be a giver, then you might as well fill yourself up with something amazing like love, positivity, right? If we think of even scripture and asking us not only to be excellent, but also to consider that we are to meditate and think of positive things, good things, and that is in which we are to put our energy and our focus, then imagine what would magnify out of that. And I think that if we start realizing, wait a minute, if I envy other, I own that envy first. If I go around hating people, I own that hate first. So how about we can flip that script and go and look at the source and realize who's owning that source and choose. And if you don't like it, be like, we're divorcing right now. Well, I'm not choosing that path and I'm going to change my path, right? You can reject that ideology
Yeah,
and embrace something better for yourself and everyone around you. So, I mean, it's a rethinking and realizing who owns all of that. When you're gossiping, when you're doing all these negative things and horrible things, and when you are judging in a way and you're this and you're that, you own all of that first.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. They always say, for every two fingers, every finger you're pointing, there's three facing back. When you point, you know, when you're pointing your finger at someone else, there's three facing back. And if you look at
yeah.
it, it is, right? So
Mhm.
we are the source of that. And we do have to own that. And it's a very valid point that you brought up. And people need to hear that sometimes because we do get to choose how we react, how we show up, and what we hold on to. There's so many people hurting in the world right now, everywhere, everywhere. And, a lot of people are holding on to things that happened 10 years ago. They're angry at people from 10 years ago.
It's
I
like,
have a
whoa.
I have a very close friend and she's sick and she was supposed to come in and we were supposed to somebody just came in. We were supposed to do something while I had spent some time off, and I didn't hear from her or anything. But I was upset because I really wanted to see her.
Mhm.
She's not doing well at all. But then I had to find understanding and compassion about what she's going through, and
Right.
how she's feeling in all of this, and maybe it's hard for her to be around people right now, right? um did 6 years ago I might not have been in that place. I might have called her 3 times and said, where are you, you're late. Or but you always there's always another side to every situation. Maybe she's spending time with her kids. We don't know how much time she has left, right? Maybe she's spending time with her grandbabies. Or maybe she just didn't. It turns out she said, I'm just really down and I don't feel like traveling right now. And I said, okay, you know, um,
Right.
so I might take that trip to her,
Right.
just to see her, make sure she's okay. And if she is, that's fine. But I need to know that she's okay because we've been friends since forever, you know. Um, so yeah, so I
But you see what you're sharing there is a perfect example of that. yes, she would be on the receiving end of your visit, but at the same time, also you're on that end where there is in it for you the love that you get to share, that you have within you, and you get to fulfill that promise, right? By doing. And so I think if I had to say, well, what do I think of something like that? I'd be like, yeah, if you're perfectly able and capable to go, then go. And don't mind whatever else she might be thinking. Maybe right now, this would be one of those things that would really help her feel, wow, you are thinking of me. Thank you so much, right? Because there might be a certain level of depression, upsetness, and sometimes that lens with which we see things can be tainted, right? By all of the different pains, right? And different issues that she might also be undergoing that may not even face us, right? Because she's probably just overwhelmed with so many different thoughts that could be just crossing her mind.
Well,
So,
I also have to go to pull her out of it, because she really needs, she can't be in depression and make it through what she has to
right.
get through.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
she can't
why.
be in depression and make it
Right.
through this fight that she's
Right.
fighting. So
So
I
that's
I
exactly.
gotta go pull her out of that.
Yeah, and you
Um,
give that love, you know?
yeah, so I kind of know that. And I already spoke to my husband about it. I said, I told him why I didn't think she was coming, and why I need to make that trip, and he totally understood. But just situations like that, because if the shoe was on the other foot, she would have been here already. You know what I mean? She would have been here. She'd be at my door. And sometimes people are not good at saying how they feel or
Of
asking for
course.
that help, and as long as we've been friends, we're so much alike. I just kind of know that um she needs my strength right now, because
Right.
she just doesn't have it, and sometimes you just have to give that up. um but I was kind of hoping she came here, because she always gets better with my jungle juices that I make. So um
Yeah.
so I was kind of like looking forward to that. I stocked up on all that stuff, but when it's meant to be. But I'll take that trip. But the other thing too is that so much of what happens around us, we internalize like it's meant for us, right? So I could have quickly said, "What's the matter? She doesn't want to see me." But and and what's the matter? She'd rather be somewhere else. But I don't internalize things like that, because that hurts me. You know, I have no control over what other people feel or what other people do or think about me, or so I don't choose to embody that, you know. I don't make more of the situation. So when you bring it back to yourself, and you love, honor, and respect your feelings, your place, your time for pause, your time for self-care, all those other things outside of you become less important, because you feel more connected to yourself. And like, if someone said to me, "I don't like what you did," I would say, "Oh, sounds personal." You know what I mean? Sounds like a personal problem, because I like what I did, right? um I don't, I mean, I'm not dismissive or rude, but I just, if somebody says to me, "I don't like the way you do your job," I would say to them, "Well, it's a good thing you don't have to do my job then." Right?
Correct.
So, you know, um, but I would just walk away. Somebody asked something on a post, "What would you say if somebody at a party told you they didn't like you?" I said, I wouldn't say anything. So I responded to the posts in the group that I'm in. I wouldn't say anything, because that's the reflection of them, not of me. You know, when
Hmm.
people are angry and hostile and negative and stuff, those are their feelings about self. They're
Right.
reflecting what they feel onto the world. So,
Hmm.
and it could be very damaging to our day if we don't see that for what it is, right?
Hmm.
And we internalize that. And I was that person that if somebody didn't like me at a party, I would spend that time to, hey, don't you know how nice I am? What's the matter with you?
Well, to
I,
be honest, I think that most of us, especially, it requires a level of maturity to arrive at the understanding, right? And to basically let people just fall off you
yeah.
and you just let people be whatever and whoever and do whatever they want. And that's when that sense of autonomy and ownership comes in our lives. And we realize, you don't own other people, you only own yourself. Let them all be, do, and have
Do
whatever the
and
heck they want, you know?
yeah.
Um, I certainly don't go around telling people what to do. I mean, I have my own personal opinions, of which I've voiced many with you here. I also think that, individual freedoms should not force other people to give up their own. So in that sense, I think we all have to start realizing that in that autonomy, you have to respect other people's choices at the same time that you don't go around forcing other people to give up what they have in order to just have your choice be the one given. And I think that society now has become very tainted with a lot of group thinking and a lot of like, if it's not this way, then you're this, and if it's not that way, then you're that. And people are pushed and compelled to take on identities that they don't even believe in or that they don't even have themselves because that's what's trending or because that's what the group is pushing for. So
Or
a lot
because
of
they're,
times,
but a lot of times they're pushing those agendas because of their own beliefs
right,
and their own inhibitions. But I'm not going to let your inhibition
dictate.
change the way I feel.
Right,
Keep it
right.
over there. If you're
Keep it over there.
insecure, that's
That's your
you know,
problem.
I can help you. Yeah, but don't,
Yeah,
don't call me a spade because you want to be, you
right,
want your rights and all this
right.
other stuff. So I never I- you know, I do have my judgments about things, but they're not judgments. They're my opinions and I'm entitled to them. But
Absolutely.
I don't push my opinions on other people. You hear all these talks during elections and all this other stuff, and um,
A lot of
on
hate.
the news and all that stuff. And I don't get involved in any of that bullshit. I
I don't
choose
care.
not to because
I don't care.
um, you know, I cast my vote and that's it. Whatever happens, happens, right? Um,
That's where you voice your opinion, right? Like
yeah.
that's
So
where you can really voice your choice as opposed to attacking people. People
yeah.
now have a sense of ownership of issues as if you're gonna convert people into anything. Let people be. People can arrive at their own belief systems and thoughts, and that's gonna differ because people's lived experiences differ, and because what some person might think is bad, actually someone might have experienced it in a context that is perfectly good. And so the unfortunate part of where we are at and what we have arrived at in society, as opposed to having evolved, is like a downward spiral where people cannot even have their own private and personal opinions respected for what they are in a discussion that allows critical thinking and critically critique one another in a way that allows for learning to happen and also for expansion, where either or neither of the possibility of choices and discussion could even be part of the truth. The truth may be even further along, right? And unfortunately, we've come to a very low place in society. I'm going to say, at least what I've experienced in American society so far, right now, in the last few years, has been such a terrible thing where people cannot even have constructive, enlightened type of understanding of anything. It's like, people have become so weird. You cannot even watch a debate because there is not a debate. There's no
Yeah,
critical thinking
there's
process
no
going on.
debating.
It's like,
Everybody believes that their
it's
way is the
weird.
right way,
It's
and
weird.
you're never gonna have two people agree on the same thing on all accounts in any discussion. You're just not, because everybody has different cultural variances. People were
Right.
raised differently with different um different cultures, different thought concepts, in some cultures it's all about the family and the mother is the matriarch of the family. In other
Yep.
countries it's the father, so they're the most important. And so everybody's different on something just that basic. We could find variances through the world. So we have to get off the soapbox where we feel my way is the right way, you
Yeah.
know,
It's
because
difficult.
it just creates more division, more animosity, and less of getting back to yourself. And we are all the same, whether people want to believe it or not, and until we come back to oneness, nobody's going home. We are going to keep repeating these lives here on earth, that cycle of depravity and all that stuff, because we're looking for the wrong thing, right?
Mhm.
And it's only by coming home to self and letting go of all those things that we think are so important and start seeing each other as us all being the same, that we are really going to be able to go home, right? And by whom I'm talking about
Yeah.
heaven, because we ain't getting there the way we are. You ain't getting there on roller skates. You ain't getting
I
there
don't know.
driving.
We're gonna get there in a
You ain't
Lamborghini.
getting there nowhere. Well, because it's not, because
Hmm.
we're created as one thing, so even in that book that I was talking about, there's no man, there's
Mhm.
no woman in heaven, we're all just spirits, we're all just entities. That's all we are. We're not meant to
Uh,
be in the body that we're in, and we're here because of our
uh,
own division, right? Um
yes.
so it is what it is, right? So you have your choices in life, but on a bright note, some things that you can do to bring it back home is to have those conversations with yourself. Where am I at in my life? Where would I like to be? What could I do today in this moment to take those steps to get there? What's bothering me today? How do I feel? How does my body feel? Um, am I having good thoughts? Am I having bad thoughts? I always talk about Chad Helmstead because I just love him. The things we say when we talk to ourselves. So I met him many, many decades ago, at a conference. I was listening to the conference and I just absolutely loved him. And he has all these books out, but the things we say when we talk to ourselves was very instrumental in my life, because most of the conversations that we have with ourselves on a day-to-day basis is with ourselves, right? We have those conversations with ourselves more than anybody else we talk to. We have those conversations with ourselves. And when you stop and listen to the thoughts that are actually going through your mind, it's baffling how negative they are about ourselves. It's baffling. And retraining yourself to think positively about yourself is harder than you might think, you know so you do have to start somewhere, and you do have to bring it back to self, because if we're not happy, we have nobody to blame. So something could have happened 10 years ago, maybe it was somebody else's fault, but it happened 10 years ago, and
And then they're still stuck over there.
and you're
I'm
still
sorry.
stuck.
I just have to laugh because it's
but
like,
but that's what I'm saying. If
it's
it
like,
happened 10 years ago, they might have been wrong in that moment because they did whatever they did.
but it's
but
done.
but it's you taking it with you into your future and allowing that to control how you interact with other people, or
Yeah.
how you show up in your day to day.
Yeah.
Now you're
It's
hurting
huge.
yourself, right? So
Yep.
somebody told me one day that they don't forgive for the other people, they forgive because it hurts them when they don't. And that
Yes.
was like mind blowing to me. And it was in a time when I really needed to hear that, because I hadn't forgiven a lot of people. And it changed my life because I was walking around carrying all that shit, you know? And um, when you can let go of all of that, the world gets lighter, you get lighter. Problems don't seem so big, and you can
I,
actually enjoy your life.
yes. And I think it's part of that whole process of releasing, but also becoming really more intentional and looking within, right? It's so important because sometimes there are people who have hurt us and we may have a hard time again releasing and letting go because our ego gets in the way. But when we realize the best thing we could do is actually let that all go. Best thing we could do for ourselves is let it go and let life flow. You may find that, you are getting your own lesson in whatever you need to get, but also you'll find that you now can focus your energy on something bigger, better. And holding on to past stuff requires us to one, forgive ourselves and also forgive the other person. Forgive ourselves because there's a lot of yuckiness to be holding on and carrying such a heavy bag of emotions for years and years and years and years and stopping our lives. Like, no, at some point we have to realize the behavior is one, out of proportion, two, not necessary, and three, is stopping us from living our finite life. If we were going to be here forever in this flesh, that'd be awesome. But guess what? We're not. We're in a degenerative process. We're getting older and aging. And I hope that whoever's listening kind of joins the understanding that I personally have really come to. You have today, wake up, make the best of it and hope that each step in that direction of always trying to make up and do the best that you got for with what you got for that day will lead you to a place that is also great. But you can only do that if you are willing, right? You're willing to understand that and cooperate and collaborate with yourself and your mind and your heart and align them in that collaboration so that you can get through all of the different things that may come. Because guess what? We wake up and that doesn't mean that the day is going to be perfect and great, but you should hopefully want that for yourself. A great and amazing day,
I
you
set that
know?
intention every day. So we're gonna leave it there, guys. I think we gave you a lot of stuff right here.
Hopefully.
We gave you a lot of stuff right there, you know. But we mean the best. We want you, I think there's a lot of people out there hurting right now. Lorilet and I agree on that 100%. And it's okay to be where you're at, but you don't have to stay there. Have those conversations, bring it back to yourself because anything you get into, you can get out of. Trust me. you know. So we're going to leave it there tonight. We want to thank you so much for showing up for us on Soul's Code and have a great evening.
Ciao.